But first on stage, I would like to introduce our one and only, the leading project manager for Nordic Food and Tourism, Brynja Laxdal. In her previous job for Åland Islands, she really made a difference in lifting food, supporting food producers, and support for the destinations all over Iceland. She has put her mind and her soul into this project, always aiming on finding and presenting the very best solutions. Her ambitions for seeking out new ways of thinking, new ways of doing and believing in the future of food and tourism has led us to this place here today. Brynja will give you a great insight into what we have been up to for the last 3 years and take you on the journey of how we could frame our opportunities and really dive into the future together. Please help me welcome Brynja on stage.
So thank you for a very flattering introduction, and a very good morning to all of you here in Egilstad and also people that are listening all around the world. In my speak today, I will be addressing our findings in the project Nordic Food and Tourism, and I will be trying to exclude topics that will be discussed later on in the conference. So as our aim was to look into the future, we decided to hire an international research and consultant company called Kairos Future, and they tailored their search and an analysis on criteria that was formulated by the project group. And the methods that were used to gain insight into the future were based on trend watching. And trend watching is about compiling information that illustrates attitude and expectations. And we specifically focused on trends and shifts caused by climate change, as well as behavioral changes related to traveling and food consumption. We also gathered insight from Nordic experts working in the field of local food and tourism. And to understand global perception on Nordic food and tourism, we relied on ethnography. And ethnography is about online qualitative and quantitative analysis using algorithms and artificial intelligence tools. We covered 5 different languages, English, German, Spanish, French, and Chinese during an 11-month research frame in 2019. Over 76,000 posts were covered from social channels, news media, online discussion forums, and magazines that focused on food and drink from Nordic regions. Now, to summarize and to prioritize all the data gathered by Kairos Future, we met up in workshops, and while we were writing this preliminary report, we, of course, we read through a lot of documents and reports. So the aim of the project is to understand the perception of Nordic food. What is the world? How is the world talking about Nordic food? And also to highlight the importance of local food and sustainable tourism, and gain insight in how climate change and trends can shape our future of food and tourism. The objective is to raise awareness on future challenges and opportunities related to food and tourism, and to provide strategic guidelines that support future actions and policymaking that also align with the United Nations goal of sustainable development. Our vision is that visiting the Nordics should be about experiencing a place where people and the planet prosper in a sustainable harmony and economic growth, a place where eating and traveling is in balance with local culture and nature and is seen as a desirable lifestyle, a Nordic lifestyle. So let's start talking about Nordic food. When we talk about Nordic food, the term tends to be substituted to refer to a country's own food culture instead of pan-Nordic. But it does help to capture the idea of a shared Nordic identity that benefits from a positive perception of the Nordic region. Despite various opinions on what Nordic food stands for, we do have some commonalities in our food history. For instance, in various food preservation methods. We've also learned and adapted recipes from each other, recipes that perhaps weren't even Nordic in the beginning, since as the Vikings were fierce travelers, picking up culinary tricks and appetite, just like we are doing today, which is making our palate increasingly international. But what about our own perception on our neighboring Nordic cuisine? There was an international study done in 2018 with 24,000 participants from 34 countries. That included Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. And this survey revealed that although these Nordic countries very much like their own cuisine, they certainly did not fancy their neighboring Nordic cuisine. The point is, if we don't fancy each other's food, how can we commonly promote Nordic cuisine? But that's just one side of the coin. Someone might ask, what about the inspirational motives of the new Nordic Kitchen that was formulated in 2004? Has the ideology lingered on to today? Some of our expert interviewees worry that the concept has turned into some sort of a fine dining concept. And our analytical findings showed that the terms new Nordic food or new Nordic cuisine don't play a big part in today's searches or discussions online. But the ideology of using local ingredients in harmony with seasonality has somewhat influenced the global perception of Nordic food. And this is the other side of the coin. Through our analysis, it turned out we have a common denominator for Nordic food, and it is tightly connected to wellness, quality ingredients, and an unpolluted environment. Maybe not breaking news to Nordic marketing agents, but it is a pretty solid confirmation for everyone tied to food and tourism. And the interesting twist was that there seems to be a desire for Nordic experience, a Nordic lifestyle that includes coziness like comfort moments and comfort food, social moments like coffee breaks. And people also have the notion that we live in harmony with nature and find our Nordic work and life balance desirable. And these findings, of course, scoped our vision. So we can all agree that food is a substantial part of a country's image. It's shaped by nature and weather conditions and reflects both culture and history. But it is also important to bear in mind that our own consumer behavior and how we talk about our own food and our own food culture influences the demand and expectations of our guests. Some worry that the Nordic countries are moving away from their traditional food culture and feel that there needs to be a shift in people's mindset if we are to keep our connection to regional food. There are many underused opportunities we can use to keep our food culture alive, for example, through food tourism, a topic that will be covered by Eric Wolf after this speak. But the funny thing is, according to Kairos Future, not so many Nordic travelers seem to label themselves as food tourists, even though food is an important factor when they travel. And I think we definitely need more research on the topic, and it will be interesting also to listen to Jonathan Lear's research on Nordic sustainable food tourism later on today. So, trends and opportunity, food and tourism. Based on our analysis, there are several things to keep in mind that might boost future business. Narratives. So storytelling is not a dying trend, and it is often greatly underused around food and tourism, and sometimes doesn't always give traditional food the justice they deserve. Many traditional fermented food, for example, hákarl, which is fermented shark in Iceland, or surströmming, fermented herring in Sweden, are today seen as novelties that are strange and many times bordering on disgusting. And if we are to strengthen the food culture of the Nordic countries and reconnect with our traditions, we need to think why people started eating it in the first place and focus on framing traditional food as something positive, showcasing our ancestors' survival skills. Our ethnography analysis revealed that Nordic recipes and home cooking experiments are widely featured in online dialogues and could be used more strategically when promoting Nordic cuisine. And searches for Nordic food spiked through holiday seasons. So don't be shy to share your local recipe on international recipe sites. And if the recipe uses local ingredients that aren't available globally, then try to point out where they can buy it online. Food pairing. We also learned that people around the world find Nordic food pairing quite interesting, like gingerbread and cheese, herring and akvavit, meatballs and lingonberry sauce. So food pairing is a great idea for different kind of farmers to connect, make a narrative, and jointly market and sell their product. We should think collaborators, not competitors, and start experimenting with food pairing. We also need to start thinking more outside of the box, concept stretching. The only brand or company mentioned in relation to Nordic food discussions was IKEA, a Swedish furniture store that also happens to sell Swedish food. That's a great example of concept stretching. And the fact is that Swedish food or cuisine was the most searched Nordic food in our analysis, and the most mentioned dish was Swedish meatballs. Many hotels are good in concept stretching, offering more than just an accommodation. For example, also selling local art. The wine, dine, recline concept is also a good example of concept stretching, where restaurants offer a room for the night. The pandemic also taught restaurants to be creative with food to go and home delivery, some adding a link to a tailor-made concert to make the dining experience more memorable. In the future, grocery stores might even add online or on-site cooking classes with a chef or access to a nutritionist, even offer microgreens grown in store that customers can pick and bag themselves. So keep in mind that concept stretching and brand extension will increase. And finding new partnership is more important than ever to attract people and create unique experience. There have been and always will be emerging diet trends. The thing is that many diets start as small trends, but then they suddenly escalate into big influencing trends. It is predicted that sustainable diets, immune-boosting diets, and gut-healthy food will most likely trend as consumers are increasingly expecting food to serve functional benefits, both physically and mentally. And something I think that the food and the tourism industry could capitalize on. So stay tuned, because we will learn more about these diets later on today. Adding a little extra delight. No, this is not a trend, but it is very important for all businesses. Many commenters from across the world who have visited the Nordics feel that eating out is expensive. Everyone wants value for the money, and it is imperative that the two go together. But you can also indulge your guests with some extra delight. For example, when handing them the bill, you can give them maybe a glass of local wine or sweets, or maybe just a card with a local recipe. Small efforts can do wonders. So be creative and think about the visitor's journey, a topic that Daniel will also cover today. We need to be prepared for changing motivational factors. Sustainability and the climate are top of mind for a lot of people now, especially the younger generation, and this will influence people's decision from what to eat, to where, and how to travel. But as we know, the motivation to change one's behavior is often based on emotions rather than facts, rules, or regulations. And that being said, awareness and education do play a huge part in triggering our desire for a sustainable lifestyle. But unfortunately, awareness does not always translate to behavior. It is therefore evident that consumers often need help from businesses and governments to translate or nudge their wish to be more sustainable to actual actions. So businesses in both the food and tourism sector need to look at this as an opportunity to educate, inspire, and guide their customers toward the future of sustainable behavior, or if you wish, the Nordic lifestyle. And we will learn more about behavior design and nudging today. So, yes, we need to be prepared. There are certain factors that businesses related to food and tourism should be aware of. Sustainable tourism is the key to secure future businesses, and the most successful food destinations will strive to educate and train people working in the tourism industry about local food and drink traditions, highlighting sustainable practices. One good example on demonstrating and communicating sustainable tourism is when the Faroe Islands closed access to major tourist attraction for one weekend, but at the same time invited global volunteers to take part in preserving and maintaining these popular sites, gaining a lot of positive global attention. The point is we need to voice our climate credentials and sustainable actions more clearly. We need to inform people about our food waste and recycling policies, let them know if we're making food byproducts, talk about the carbon footprint of the local food, if we're using green or renewable energy, or if we hold the eco certification, and so forth. Subsegments are growing trends in tourism. It's about finding your rarity in the world of plenty. People are looking for places that cultivate their curiosity and activities that support their physical and mental health. Food tourism, ecotourism, slow tourism, and wellness tourism have growing subsegment trends, and they all actually go very well together. But I'd also like to mention the meetings and incentives sector or industry, the MICE industry. They could also use local food culture and heritage more strategically in their line of business. We need to be prepared for changing travelers' desires. They're changing very fast, and they require nimble companies to meet the ever-changing expectations. In tourism, the largest growth area is predicted to be in activities that are exploratory, tailor-made, and hands-on. And a good example for food and tourism is the project Edible Sweden, which we will learn more about today. Interestingly, travel shaming is a term we quite often heard before the pandemic. But according to Kairos Future, the term seems to be more of a topic within the Nordics than globally. And I even recently received a newsletter from Lonely Planet, where they used the Nordic term flygskam in their headline instead of the English term travel shaming. But we also need to embrace technology. Digital solutions in tourism are gaining grounds in all aspects. Smartphones are changing people's buying habits and behavior. The same thing goes for the food sector. Food tech is an emerging trend that is shaping the future of food, and Sara Roversi will actually address the topic in her speak. But the point is that though some of the new innovations might frighten us or seem to threaten our current businesses, we need to move past those feelings and embrace automation that is good for economic and sustainable purposes. But we also need to be agile in maintaining a balance, because a lot of our experiences depend on human interaction. I mean, you can't ask a robot chef that's programmed to cook and clean about the origin of the food or the recipe or anything like that. Or you can't yell at a robot-driven delivery who can't find your doorbell. So we all know that local food production is important. Because of food security, it stabilizes rural societies, and it enriches our culture and plays a role in sustainable development, as well as a source in economic growth. But if you want to brand a region as a food destination, you need to involve the local culinary culture and celebrate the small-scale producers, as well as chefs, as they are our source of knowledge that is fundamental to maintain our food culture. The farm-to-table movement has already been trending, but new opportunities arise as there is a growing interest in knowing where the food comes from. We will see more of origin labeling and traceability. Farmer-to-consumer delivery is likely to grow through various platforms like Reko or other similar platforms, and online marketplaces for chefs and farmers are gaining grounds. So today, agriculture as well as fisheries face a massive dual challenge in feeding a growing and increasingly affluent global population, while at the same time reducing their negative environmental impacts. There are certain changes and shifts ahead that we need to be familiar with. We all know about the bad effects warmer climate has on food production. But we are at the same time facing new possibilities in many of the Nordic countries, because now we can grow new types of food like vineyards, and crops like corn and rapeseed that have traditionally been grown in the south can now be grown further north. To ensure that food can continue to be produced in the Nordic countries in the future, we need to strive towards having a sustainable food system. And I will leave the topic to Afton Halloran. The diminishing interest of young people to work in the fields of farming or to live in rural areas has been a worrying trend in the Nordics. And we will see more of urban agriculture in cities like indoor farming, rooftop farming, vertical farming, and so forth. But we will also see a change in the role of farmers. They are facing challenges due to climate change, emerging food technology, and lack of labor that can disrupt their traditional business model of farming. So they will need to rely more on agricultural technology, like automated machinery, remote sensors, crop optimization. But the good thing is that we will always need humans to operate technology. People are already moving globally because of climate stressors and changing weather patterns. And the Nordics should be prepared for climate migrants that again can add some strain on local food production. And food tech. I know it's a huge topic and it will be covered later on today, but I just have this urge of pointing out the similarities of trends that we see are coming our way and inventions that were introduced in the movies and TV series of Star Trek. They replicated food similar to the 3D food printers today. They ate insects and they cultured meat in lab. They also drank non-alcohol beer, well, with the illusion of intoxication and without the hangover. And the growing trend today of consuming non-alcoholic beers and wine might evolve into synthetic illusional intoxication without the hangover. So, nevertheless, next time when you watch a sci-fi movie and think it's ridiculous, think twice. So these are the main strategies formulated by the project group. Investment and lobbying. It focuses on building political knowledge on food and tourism and the need to push for improved legal framework for food tourism, food entrepreneurs, and small-scale food producers. We need to encourage a Nordic funding system for food and tourism, for example, in cooperation with the new Nordic Food program. Tools and knowledge for innovation and product development. It's about combining pan-Nordic knowledge, highlighting the opportunities that pave the way for sustainable development related to food and tourism. What we need to do, we need to bring together the Nordic food science incubators, accelerators, clusters, and stakeholders from the food and tourism industry to the same table. Understanding residents, Understanding residents and visitors' needs and expectations. It's basically about understanding the harmony between residents and visitors. And we hope that joint research like this project will be ongoing, exploring triggers, trends, and drivers that affect food and tourism and encourage sustainable lifestyle. Okay, this is... We also need to focus on education and training programs for schools and businesses working within the field of food and tourism, and perhaps even create a new profession like Nordic food tourism designers. Anyone? Might be a good idea. And communicating toolkit. We need to walk the talk, spread the word, and we have to find ways of communicating our common denominators, yet still highlighting the regional differences. Many Nordic countries are using local food ambassadors that are trend shapers and influencers. And we have several Nordic platforms like the Intl Awards that promote food producers and food destinations from the Nordic region, except Greenland, which is odd. But then again, how well are the Intl Awards known, locally and internationally? Bless you. And the sixth strategy is the visibility of local food and distribution. And here the focus is on origin labeling and traceability, logistics, and accessibilities. Farmers and fishing operators need to support to engage directly with restaurants, supermarkets, local stores, and consumers. And we need to start exercising concept stretching and co-branding and involve local food in various industries. So the bottom line is, we need to think of future scenarios, plan ahead, collaborate, and remember that several individual small steps can be a giant leap for mankind. Thank you.